Members and officers of the Charter Trustees, please be upstanding to receive the Worshipful Mayor of Bournemouth.
I was just muting everyone there, so you're not even going to get to start to speak tonight.
Please accept.
I've got it. Slow system, I'm afraid, folks. Okay. I would like to welcome Charter Trustees to the meeting of the Bournemouth Charter Trustees and to the press and members of the public. Please note that this meeting is being recorded for live and subsequent broadcast and will be published on the council website for a minimum of 6 months. In order to ensure the meeting is managed effectively, please could everyone present follow the ground rules for speaking. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand physically to indicate. Wide microphones have been provided. If a councillor wishes to speak and is not sitting at a seat that has a wired microphone, a radio microphone will be provided. Councillors are requested to maintain social distancing and wear a mask or visor for the duration of the meeting and whilst in the BIC. When the councillors wishes to speak, they can remove their mask but must maintain social distance and replace their mask when they have finished speaking. Hand sanitisers are also available and should be used as appropriate. Where there appears to be consensus in the meeting for a motion, I will ask if there is any dissension. When a formal vote is required, this will be carried out by a show of hands. Councillors are advised for the live stream of the meeting may include shots of councillors who are not speaking at that time. Evacuation details will be provided as appropriate by officers. So we move on. Agenda item 1, apologies please. I will ask the Honorary Clerk to report the apologies received for this meeting. Honorary Clerk, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Apologies have been received from the following councillors: Councillor Marcus Andrews, Councillor Phil Broadhead, Councillor Dwayne Farr, Councillor May Haynes, Councillor Mohan Iyengar, Councillor Andy Jones, Councillor Lisa Lewis, Councillor Karen Rampton, Councillor Roberto Rocca and Councillor Tony Trent.
Thank you, Mr Clerk. Declarations of interest. Honorary Clerk, can you please report on any declarations of interest received?
None have been received to date, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Confirmation of minutes and matters arising. Chartered Trustees are asked to receive the minutes of the meeting held on the 25th of January and the 28th of May 21 and consider any matters arising. Does any member have any matters arising from either set of those meetings, please? There are none noted. I will accept those as read. Thank you. Agenda item 5 is the Chartered Trustees 2021 Internal Audit Report. Sorry, before we do that, I have to do my own agenda item 4, which is the Charter Mayor's report. And I will update the Charter Trustees on my recent activities. As you know, I've only been in position for a couple of weeks, but in that couple of weeks I've done 4 events so far. My first was not the best start to your year as being a mayor. I attended the funeral of the late ex-mayoress who recently passed away. That was Jim Courtney's wife, and that was a sad occasion, but was well attended by ex-people from the Council of Bournemouth. I've since also attended the Seroptimists meeting. I know, what is a Seroptimist? Half of you will ask yourself. It was a question I had to phone up the night before so I could find out what I was talking about. They are a group of feminists who help throughout the world dealing to empower women in things that they like to do. I have to say, it was an excellent lunchtime. It was a very, very interesting hour and 3/4 that I spent with them. It was good, very good. I also attended, thanks to Councillor Bartlett, who arranged the invite for me, and I really appreciate it. I attended the opening of the library at Hillview School. It's amazing what youngsters can do. It really opened my eyes just to how good they were, what they had done, the way they had designed and redone their own library and drawings, etc. It was an excellent day. And again, thank you, Councillor Bartlett. That was really appreciated. And I also, along with the chairman, vice chairman and mayors from both Poole and Christchurch, attended the flag raising ceremony for the Armed Forces Day at the Town Hall of Bournemouth. And that again was a very nice day. And again, thank you to Councillor Hedges, the chairman, for his invite to myself and the other mayors to attend that event. It was a good BCP-wide event, which is what I like to see, and I'd like to see more of those happening in the future. So again, thank you to everyone. And at this time, that is all. We've had a few cancelled due to COVID problems, people suspending them, moving them backwards, but we will get back on track as soon as possible, and I will keep you updated. If any of you within your wards have anything that you want me to come and attend, don't hesitate to ask. I'm free, and I will come and do whatever events, don't matter how small, how big. We need to get businesses in particular noticed again so that they can have a little bit of a kick from us to try and get them kick-started, and to say thank you for working right throughout the year last year with the pandemic, etc. Thank you. So moving on, agenda item 5, Charter Trustees 2020-21 Internal Audit Report. I will call on Dan Povey, Responsible Financial Officer, to present this report. Mr. Povey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Charter Trustees. If I could please ask you to turn to page 17 of your agenda papers. Basically, this item is aimed at facilitating the signing of the annual governance statement, which is on the agenda item number 7. This one is the summary of the review of internal controls and governance arrangements by the internal auditor. Page 17 is the key summary, Charter Trustees, you'll see in the middle column there all of the controls that were reviewed, they're standard controls that are reviewed every year. All of the controls are either substantial or reasonable assurance where they're applicable, with the exception of the third one down, which is partial assurance. That particular control is around risk management. The Charter Trustees approved the risk register in the meeting of January 2021. The reason why this control is only partial assurance is simply because the risk register was not in place for the entire financial year. So fully expect that to be green for the following year's audit, but that's the only one where the auditor gave less than reasonable assurance. There's more detail within the report. There's a short action plan for some of the findings and how management are going to address that. Mr. Mayor, I wasn't planning to go into any more detail. I think that's the headlines of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Povey. Are there any members that have any questions they would like to ask Mr. Povey on item agenda 5? If not, are members happy to accept that? Thank you. I will move on then to item number 6, which is the budget outcome report, again for 2020-21. And this looks like it's going to be the Mr. Povey show tonight. So again, I would ask Mr. Povey if you could report on this, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So again, this agenda item is about hopefully facilitating agenda item 8, which is the approval of the accounts for the financial year 2021. This is the detailed budget outturn report. When we get to the accounts, their statutory format, if you recall from last year, is very abridged. There's only 2 lines for the expenditure, and we had a discussion this time last year and agreed that a detailed budget report was in order to facilitate the approval of the accounts. If I could ask the Charter Trustees, please, to go to page 24 of the report. I think the key messages are really in paragraphs 3 to 6. So, during the budget monitoring in the year, we were reporting that there would be significant underspends on the Charter Trustees' budget due to the pandemic and the curtailing of many of the activities that the Charter Trustees could do. In January, when we last made the forecast, we thought that we would be underspent by £32,269. And as you'll see in paragraph 4, the final position is very close to that, £27,671 as an underspend. There's an Appendix A, which will give the Charter Trustees the detail of the spend against the individual budget headings. And the total spend that you see in Appendix A of £105,179 will agree to Agenda Item 8, which is the accounts that we will be asking the Charter Trustees to consider later on. So it's just a detailed breakdown. In the main, the Charter Trustees have incurred expenditure on premises and staff support and recharges from BCP Council, and it was the civic budgets that were underspent. There's a table at paragraph 7 which just shows what that means for the Charter Trustees reserves level. We budgeted for just over 4,000 as a contribution into reserves for 2021. When you add the £27,000 underspend, we've contributed £32,000 into reserves to give us a closing balance at the end of the year of 40,000. That's the Charter Trustees' money to be carried forward to fund Charter Trustee activities. And you'll see after the end of 2021-22, the following financial year, after we've made our budgeted contribution from reserves into the budget, we'll be at 32,000, which is 22% of the precept. And I think when we set the budget for this year, my recommendation was that 20%, 30,000, was a prudent level of reserves. It might be lower than you see in some other small parish charter trustee organisations, but 3/4 of the council's budget, of the Charter Trustees' budget is made up of recharges to the council. So it's not volatile. You know what you're paying, and therefore I think that level of reserves is prudent. And the Charter Trustees are pretty much there on the nose, obviously with a couple of thousand in hand. So, Mr. Mayor, again, I will stop there. I think that's the main headlines of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Povey. No questions? In that case, that accepted, everybody?
Great.
Thank you very much, members. And again, item 7 is the annual government statement 2021. And again, I will ask Mr. Povey, who is the responsible financial officer, to present the annual government statement. Mr. Povey.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I should just point out, please, Charter Trustees, that this item actually covers 7 and 8 on the agenda, because the annual governance return rolls into the statement of accounts. But as you'll see on page 31, which I think is the first proper part of the annual governance statement, this is the summary of the internal audit work that was done. So what you'll see there is a whole series of yeses against the controls, with 1 no against the risk management section. That is just a summary of the internal audit report that we've just considered. So that's just a straight copy of the results of that. And you can see that is signed off by the internal auditor who did the work. Section 1 on the following page is the actual section that we'll be asking the Charter Trustees to consider and approve. Again, it's all yeses apart from number 5, which relates to the risk management issue. I think that probably covers that one, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Povey. Members, do we have any questions for Mr Povey? Any points of clarity, etc.? Members happy to accept Mr Povey's report? Agreed. Thank you very much, members. Much appreciated. So we will move on. And the next item, again, item 8 was statement of accounts, but Mr Povey has covered that. Are there any questions for section 8, which Mr Povey has already covered? No, so that is accepted, thank you. Agenda item 9 is the responsible financial officer. The Charter Trustees are advised that in accordance with the standing orders, the responsible financial officer from the 1st of July 21, following the resignation of Mr Povey, will be Nicola Webb in a temporary capacity. I personally would like to take the opportunity of thanking Mr Povey for his support to Chartered Trustees, and I wish him the very best for the future in whatever he decides to do. He's done a great job for us in the time he's been doing these reports. It must be good because an idiot like me can read them, so they must be simple and effective to read. And I thank Mr Povey for that. It's been very kind, and I wish you the best of luck in the future, Mr Povey, and thank you for your work. So moving on, members, agenda item 10 is the flag flying arrangements for the Charter Trustees for Bournemouth. I call on Karen Tompkins, Deputy Head of Democratic Services, to introduce this item. Mrs Tompkins, please.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Charter Trustees, set out on your agenda is an opportunity to open debate in the context of any flag flying arrangements that you wish to put in for Bournemouth. The first issue relates to the potential adoption of a flag by yourselves as the Charter Trustees. Not necessarily saying that that needs to be considered tonight, but it's just an opportunity to highlight the issue. As you know, the Charter Trustees do have ownership of the coat of arms for the former Borough of Bournemouth. So that may be one option that you wish to consider, but indeed there may be others in relation to historic connections with Bournemouth that you also may want to take into consideration. And the item also, I'll use the term flags the opportunity, excludes a pun, to consider the arrangements, the protocol that you wish to put in place for flying your flag once adopted. There may be specific events that you would like to highlight, and I've set out Mayor making formal meeting of the Charter Trustees and Civic Service as examples, but indeed there may be others. So again, that's an opportunity for discussion. And there are some notes which are set out on the agenda just for consideration. I'll run through those very quickly. An opportunity for flying flags on other occasions on the instructions of the Honorary Clerk, who will consult with the Mayor. That may be part of your protocol. The opportunity to recognise the death of serving civic dignitaries, and indeed just highlighting the arrangements for Remembrance Day. I think one issue that I would highlight is members here tonight will be aware that the Cabinet at their meeting yesterday considered the BCP Council flag flying protocol. So I think the aim would be that anything that the Charter Trustees wish to put in place needs to complement, so it's not at conflict with what's in place for the Council. And then the last section on the agenda item, and again this may be for further discussion, is the potential for the provision of flagpoles that are specific for the use of the Charter Trustees. Now that may well be the opportunity for the use of temporary flagpoles, but equally that may be that you wish to consider permanent flagpoles, so there'd be planning considerations as well. So in summary, as I say, it's just to highlight the issue, open it for debate, and give the Charter Trustees the opportunity to consider what arrangements they wish to put in place. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs Tompkins. Over to members. Is there anyone that would like to make any comment on this? Councillor Borthwick.
I think it's a great opportunity to investigate this, because if we don't do it in its early stages of mayoralship, it'll get lost. So I do feel that the whole process itself is excellent, and you can play around with it a little bit here, but it won't make any difference. I think the best time for us to get it secure is as quickly as possible, and I'd be quite happy to move that the layout at the present time should be instituted this year.
Thank you, Councillor Borthwick. Councillor Anderson.
Chairman, I believe Councillor Coope is before me.
Sorry, Councillor Coope.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was going to more or less say the same as Councillor Borthwick, but I think we should be, if we've got the flag, we should be using it for special occasions like the Queen's birthday, and particularly next year for the 70th or the Platinum, you know, so all those sort of special events, if that goes with the BCP flag raising as well, then I think most important that we do it at the same time. And I'm quite happy to second Councillor Borthwick's proposal if that's what's necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Coope. Councillor Anderson.
Thank you, Chairman. I would echo what Councillor Borthwick and Councillor Coope have said, but I do have one additional item I would like us to look at. We talked about having our own flagpole in this paper, but we haven't talked about the costs for that. So I would like to ask if we could add, if we're having a motion, that we could get someone to investigate the costs, because I think it's important that we find out how much before we agree to purchasing another flagpole. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Anderson. If I may, members, interject with everyone. It's my right to do so. I think, personally, I agree with everything that's been said so far. What I think would be really good and really helpful if we have a very small working party, 3-4 people, let's sit down, decide the dates we want to use the flag, where we want to raise it, how we want to do it. We'll get officers, if I can land Mrs. Tompkins with a little bit more work, I'm sure she'll hate me for it, just to find out the costs and everything that are going to be associated with this. And then we will bring it back at the earliest time, even if it is just sent out via email to you all for agreement, or we will bring it to the next meeting. I personally would like to see it done ASAP, so that we have several things coming up later in the year, including our own remembrance services. And it would be great if we could fly what was the Bournemouth flag as our Charter Trustees flag. Would members be happy with that approach to this, to have maybe 4 or 5 members at the most? We don't need any more. I'm sure we're all capable of talking to each other and working something out. We'll set a meeting up. Anyone that wishes to take part, please let me know, and I will arrange a meeting and I will come along to it, and there'll be a few others of you to do that. So that is my proposal at this moment in time. Before I do that, we go any further. Councillor Williams.
You just suggested exactly what I was going to suggest, Mr.
Great
Mayor.
minds think alike.
And so, yes, absolutely. And I'd like to volunteer for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fowler.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, of course it's a good idea because of costs and other things that are involved. I'd just like to say that we've got a really good coat of arms. I don't know how many other people in this room tonight were actually born in Bournemouth, but I was. And beauty, pulchritudo and salubritas, beauty and health. You know, it's historic. We haven't got the history that our neighbours have got, but that is a historic coat of arms, and its symbols are reflected in lots of places in the town. And I think it would be great if that could be adopted as the flag. I don't want to be on the working party because people who know a lot more than me will be on it, but I'm completely supportive of it, and I'd like that coat of arms to be adopted for the flag.
Thank you, Councillor Fowler. Councillor Dunlop.
Well, I'm going to be the voice of dissent here, Mr. Mayor. I think that we have a flag policy coming forward from the council. I think that if every single charter trustee has yet another flag, I think it's just really too many flags. And I'm inclined to think that we need to have a bit of modernity about this. I think that the coat of arms is obviously meaningful to older generations and people whose history is in the town, but I'm just wondering if it means anything to most of our modern residents. I just think it's one flag too many.
Yeah, I know. Good. Thank you, Councillor Dunlop. Councillor Hedges.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, I'd like to seek some clarity, which has been touched upon by other chartered trustees just now. There is no consideration at this point that our coat of arms flag is intended to be changed in any way.
As far as I'm aware, Councillor Hedges, absolutely nothing whatsoever has been recommended for change with regards to the Bournemouth flag.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, because last year there was a drift of suggestions couched in phrases like Bournemouth needs a more punchy flag, something more modern that gets our message across, sort of thing. I would, and I obviously always hate to disagree with Councillor Dunlop, because it never gets you anywhere really if you disagree with but I may have to on this occasion, that I for one would be very, very upset if the flag was altered in any way. I do agree that there is a BCP flag and coordination should be made for that, whether we have any more flagpoles or not. But certainly when the rumour was starting last year that there was a consideration that Bournemouth, I'm not sure who in Bournemouth actually thought that the flag should be more punchy and more modern. I did consult Councillor Filer and others and the Civic Society, and the Civic Society were quite adamant that that is the Bournemouth flag. I did suggest that would it be an idea to go down to Poole and tell them to change their flag and add Moordown, Villi de Poole, and then try going to Christchurch and mentioning it to Mayor Dedman that we were going to, and her contribution was also quite forceful. So seeking your reassurance that our flag is safe at this point. There's no question of follow-up, and I just wanted to make that statement. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hedges. Councillor Bartlett, I'll bring you in one moment. Councillor Bartlett.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I couldn't disagree more with Councillor Dunlop on what she said. When LGR was proposed, one of the main issues was to recognise that each individual part of the conurbation would retain its identity and its heritage. Part of that was to recognise that the mayoralties had to be retained, and in the same way the flag and the civic side of what we do is important to people in this town. I was born in Bournemouth. We shouldn't underestimate the pride that most of our residents have in the town, and they do warm to mayoralty and all the other things that go along with it, and the flag policy is part of that. So I would be absolutely horrified if there was any suggestion that we would dispense with those elements of what this town does and what it's about.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. I tend to agree with you wholeheartedly. The whole reason we have a new flag policy coming through is that we can work with it. We're not trying to take it over. They're not trying to take over what we do. We need to work together in this, which is why I suggest that we have a working group to look at this. And that would be my suggestion as a way forward, so that we can come to some decision and consensus as to how we're going to move forward with this. I like seeing the Bournemouth flag flying. I think when we have Chartered Trustees meeting, when we have the Remembrance Service, which we must remember is organised by the Chartered Trustees now, so it would be nice to fly our own flag. We would, of course, bow to superiority from BCP when the occasion arises. It's the flying of the Union flag, etc. They obviously will take precedence, but we must keep our own flag, in my opinion. Mrs. Tompkins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to clarify that currently as Charter Trustees you don't have an adopted flag. This gives you the opportunity to adopt the flag that you wish to use. And in relation to the issues that Councillor Hedges has raised, the Bournemouth Borough Council, the former Bournemouth Borough Council coat of arms is in your ownership and wouldn't change if that was the flag or what you wanted to use for your adopted flag. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mrs. Tompkins. I know that we had a move by, sorry, Councillor Dove.
Yes, thank you. Maybe I've misunderstood what it was that Councillor Dunlop was saying. At no point did I understand it to mean destruction of our heritage or moving away from our pride of our towns or anything like that. I think this was a policy that's been put forward in addition to what it is that we are already doing, rather than taking anything away, and that's how I've understood Councillor Dunlop's comments to be. And I think it would be prudent for the working group to consider
whether or not we move away from a flag, and there are other ways that we can appeal to a younger cohort, and our demographic is becoming younger, and how do we appeal to them, and how are we offering a more inclusive reach out to all of our residents of our town. And that, I think, is what Councillor Dunlop was saying, not we shouldn't have any flag and we should erase any history and heritage of the town.
Thank you, Councillor Dunlop. Of course, that will all be taken into consideration with a working party, and we will move forward. Sorry, I cannot hear you, Councillor Dove.
I'm Councillor Dove today.
Yes, sorry, Councillor Dove. Do apologise. So we do have a move that was made by Councillor Borthwick and seconded by Councillor Coope. Is there a necessity for that move to move forward, or would you like me to set up a working group?
I'm quite happy to take any amendments which will benefit my proposal. So
But would you like to withdraw your move at this time, Councillor Borthwick, so we can set up a working group of which
yes,
you...
I'm agreeing.
Okay. You happy with that, Councillor Coope? Thank you very much. So therefore, members, I will set up a working group to that effect. Get your emails to me, and we will get this moving ASAP. I'd like to see it done as soon as possible, please, if we can. Shouldn't take too long if we can get our heads around it. It'd be nice to have cross-party with members from everywhere represented on this, both old and new members, so we can get everyone's views on this. I think it's really important to do that. Is that noted, please, Mr. Tompkins? Thank you very much. So, members, I'm sorry that this has been such a short meeting, but it just shows that you have read your notes, etc. And with that, I will call this meeting to a close. If you could all just remain seated while we wait for Mr. Mace, please. Thank you.
Members and officers of the Charter Trustees, please be upstanding.